Chosen one. Everything around you right now is not as it seems. The noise of the world might still be swirling in the distance. But here, in this exact moment, something has shifted. Heaven has leaned in close. The invisible hands of God have pressed pause not on time itself, but on everything competing for your attention, so this message could find you. You have wondered, why do I feel this sudden stillness? It is not chance. It is not coincidence. It is the orchestration of the one who holds galaxies in his hands, yet calls you by name. You were meant to hear this today, in this very hour, because what I'm about to tell you is the continuation of something you've already lived without even realizing it. There was a final test. You didn't know it. You thought it was just another hard week, another wave of confusion, another delay. But heaven saw, angels took note, and when the moment came when you could have chosen bitterness, revenge, or to give up altogether, you chose to stay. You passed. I think of one chosen one I once met, a woman who had been waiting for years for God's promise to manifest. Her season felt like an endless hallway, door after door closed in her face. People told her to give up. The enemy whispered, "You were never called." But she kept showing up in prayer, even when her voice cracked. She gave thanks when her pantry was nearly empty. She worshipped in the middle of nights that felt colder than the walls around her. And then, one ordinary morning, she woke up with no angelic trumpet, no dramatic sign, just a peace she could not explain. Weeks later, the breakthrough came, not because she forced it, but because heaven had already marked the day she would pass her last hidden trial. You, chosen one, are in that moment now. According to what is revealed in the first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 10, the God of all grace, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. This is the essence of your present pause. It is not an empty silence, but a holy reset. The one who called you is also the one rebuilding you, piece by piece, into something stronger than the trial you just endured. You see, passing the test wasn't about God finally learning who you are. It was about you finally realizing the strength He placed inside you from the beginning. Trials did not make you chosen. They revealed that you already were. The enemy wanted to exhaust you until you misread your identity. But instead, your obedience revealed your true authority. Right now, angels are rearranging the stage of your life. Some people will exit without explanation. Some opportunities will vanish, not because you failed, but because God refuses to let you settle for the almost when He has prepared the appointed. Imagine a seed buried deep in the soil. It is silent, invisible, and forgotten by those who planted it. But under the pressure of darkness and weight, it breaks open, not in destruction, but in transformation. You have been that seed, chosen one, and the pause you feel is simply the earth making room for you to rise. I will not sugarcoat it. This next season will not be without challenges, but it will be different, because you will face it not as the one being tested, but as the one entrusted. You are shifting from survival mode to assignment mode, and heaven will not waste a single tear you shed in the last season. This is why I must invite you into something right now, not as a ritual, but as a prophetic act of alignment. If this message is piercing your spirit like an arrow of truth, then take one moment and write in the comments, the number 144, not because the number itself has power, but because it represents divine completeness and God's perfect order being established in your life. And while you do that, let me speak this blessing over you. May the peace that passes all understanding guard your heart in the hours to come. May your ears be tuned to heaven's whisper, and may you see with eagle's eyes the doors about to open before you. If this word resonates deeply, share it with another soul who might be standing at the edge of their own breakthrough. Subscribe so you don't miss the next message that heaven presses into your timeline. And if you feel led, let your heart move in generosity, because even your giving in this season becomes a seed for the harvest ahead. This is your moment. Chosen one. The pause is almost over. Get ready to soar. You never knew it, but a silent trial was unfolding in the unseen realm, a final test not announced, not scheduled, not explained. There was no warning, no moment where God whispered, "This is it." Instead, it came disguised as another ordinary difficulty. That's how heaven works. Sometimes the most decisive battles of your life arrive without fanfare. This test wasn't about your comfort. It was about your alignment. It was about proving, not to God, but to the cloud of witnesses watching you, that your faith was more than words and more than moments of convenience. You passed because you didn't take the bait. The enemy had set traps in sequence. Like a hunter laying snares along a narrow path, a fence was one trap. Someone close to you said something cruel, and you could have taken it personally. Let bitterness root itself. Fear was another, an unexpected change that could have made you retreat. Distraction was the last sudden opportunities that seemed good, but would have pulled you from your true calling. You stepped around each one, not perfectly, but faithfully. You chose the narrow way when the wide road was easier. That choice was not random. It was the deciding moment that brought you here. I'm reminded of a young man, another chosen one, whose dream was to serve God in ministry. In the quiet of his heart, he had promised, "I will follow you anywhere." But then came the waiting. Months turned into years. Invitations to preach dried up. His friends moved forward in their lives while he seemed stuck. That was when the temptation to make something happen in his own strength became strong. One day, an influential figure offered him a high-paying role far from his calling. It would solve his financial worries instantly. Everyone said, "This is God's provision." But in his spirit, something was unsettled. He prayed, wrestled, and finally turned it down. He didn't know it then, but that was the test. A week later, the very ministry he had longed to join called him not because he chased it, but because the door was opened from heaven's side. That's what your hidden test was like. It might not have been dramatic in the natural, but in the spirit, it was monumental. The voice of God thundered in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 2. Remember how the Lord your God led you in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you, to know what was in your heart. Wilderness seasons are not punishment. They are proving grounds. The test you passed was about refining your motives and confirming your readiness. And now, like Israel standing on the edge of the promised land, you are closer to crossing over than you realize. The enemy wanted you to believe that nothing was happening, that God had forgotten you. But in reality, each day of obedience was shifting the weight in the spirit. Like a scale, slowly tipping. Every prayer, every act of forgiveness, every refusal to compromise was bringing you closer to the moment the balance breaks and the promise tips into your hands. This is why the trial came quietly, because the enemy wanted to steal your victory before you even recognized it was a battle. If you had known, perhaps you would have fought harder, prayed louder, leaned more urgently into God. But God allowed it to remain hidden, so your response would come from the truest place, your uncalculated, unforced obedience. Think of a sculptor working on a block of marble. To the casual observer, the changes are subtle, small chips, gentle scraping. But to the sculptor, every strike is deliberate. Every cut reveals a line of beauty that has been there all along. Your last season has been exactly that. God has been shaping you, one unnoticed moment at a time, until the image he sees matches the destiny he designed. Now you are ready for the next unfolding, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you have been refined enough to handle it. What's coming will require discernment sharper than before, faith steadier than before, and courage greater than before, but you have them now. The test was the proof. You may still feel the echoes of that trial, like the phantom weight of chains that have already been broken. That's normal. It takes time for your mind to realize what your spirit already knows. You are free, and you have passed. And somewhere in heaven's records, that chapter of testing is now marked complete. There was a moment recently so brief, you might have missed it when the enemy thought he had you. His net was already woven, the snare already set. In the unseen realm, forces of darkness celebrated prematurely. But something happened. The trap failed. It didn't fail because you saw it coming in the natural. It failed because you were walking in alignment with heaven's rhythm, and that rhythm disrupted the timing of the enemy's strike. You were not where he thought you'd be, not thinking the thoughts he hoped you'd think. I think of a young woman, another chosen one, who was betrayed by someone she trusted. The betrayal came at a time when she was most vulnerable. Her heart ached. Her mind raced with ways to fight back, expose, and retaliate. In the natural, no one would have blamed her, but instead, she paused. She remembered a verse her grandmother had once spoken over her as a child and decided to forgive before the wound could fester. That night, what she didn't know was this: her act of forgiveness had shut down a chain of events in the spiritual realm that the enemy had been counting on. The plan to trap her in bitterness dissolved instantly. Forgiveness was the unseen weapon that broke the cycle. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, second letter, chapter 2, verse 11, in order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. Amen. And that's exactly why the trap failed. You didn't walk blindly. Maybe you couldn't name the scheme, but your spirit sensed it. Your obedience interrupted his blueprint. Sometimes, the enemy's traps are loud temptations you can clearly recognize. Other times, they are disguised in good things, the perfect relationship that would have drained your calling, the business opportunity that would have tied you to people with corrupt motives, the sudden detour that looked like promotion but was actually a spiritual dead end. You may never know the full extent of what you avoided. And that's the beauty of walking with God. He delivers you from dangers seen and unseen. Right now, I want you to type these 3 words in the comments. I walk free. This isn't just a phrase, it's a prophetic declaration over your own life. When you write it, You're doing more than agreeing with this message. You're stamping your timeline with a spiritual record that the traps failed. And your path remains unbound. And as you declare it, remember this: freedom isn't only about leaving something behind. It's about stepping into something greater. Every failed trap is not just a closed door, it's also a redirection toward the place heaven always meant for you to stand. Some of you feel like you've just escaped something you can't even name. That uneasiness you've been carrying, that's your spirit adjusting to the reality of freedom. It feels strange at first because you were bracing for a blow that never landed. So walk freely, not with hesitation, but with the confidence of someone who knows the snare has been dismantled and the path ahead is clear. Your light has outlasted the darkness, and your next steps will be taken without chains. Because here's the truth: every step you now take is a declaration of victory. When you choose joy in the face of uncertainty, you're trampling on the enemy's pride. When you speak hope where others speak fear, you're dismantling the atmosphere he tried to build around you. And when you keep walking forward, even with questions, you are proving that faith is not a feeling, it's an unshakable choice. You might be tempted to look back, to analyze how close you came to falling into the trap. Don't. The wilderness doesn't deserve a post-mortem. Your focus belongs ahead, on the horizon, where new instructions and opportunities are already waiting. Think of a runner breaking free from the final lap of a grueling race. The finish line doesn't just mean the end, it means the beginning of what comes next, the celebration, the rest, the renewed energy for the next challenge. That's you right now. And remember this: the trap wasn't just about stopping you, it was about silencing you. By surviving it, you have kept your voice, your influence, and your authority. Use them. Speak life into others, still caught in their battles. Let your freedom be a signal flare in the night, guiding them toward their own escape. Your path is clear now, and heaven walks it with you. There are places in your journey that no one else has seen, not because you hid them, but because God kept them hidden. These were your training grounds, the unglamorous, uncelebrated seasons where the work being done in you was more important than the work being done through you. Training grounds rarely look impressive. Sometimes they look like failure, sometimes like obscurity, and often like delay. But in heaven's perspective, these seasons are sacred. They strip away what cannot survive in the higher places and refine what must remain unshaken when you stand there. Think of David before Goliath. The battle with the giant wasn't his first fight, it was simply his first public one. Long before anyone sang songs about him, David was in the fields, fighting lions and bears, alone. No applause, no crowd, no reward, but survival. Those hidden victories were his real training. They were why he could stand before the giant without trembling. Your hidden training grounds have been like that. They've looked different for you, perhaps long nights of wrestling with God's voice, learning to trust Him when prayers seemed unanswered, or facing one closed door after another without walking away from your calling. There's a story of a man who dreamed of leading worship to thousands, but before that day came, God placed him in a small countryside church with barely 20 members. Week after week, he sang to empty pews, sometimes wondering if he'd misunderstood God's calling entirely. Yet in that quiet space, he learned to lead worship for an audience of one. He discovered that his gift wasn't about numbers, but about obedience. Years later, when the doors opened to lead before thousands, He carried the same posture, unmoved by applause. Anchored by intimacy with God, the Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 54, verse 2. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtains wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. This is the paradox of your hidden seasons. They feel small, but they are where your capacity is stretched. God uses them to lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes so you can hold the weight of what's coming. If you look closely, you'll see how deliberate this shaping has been. Maybe you were given responsibilities that felt too heavy at the time, only to find now they taught you how to carry more than most people can. Or maybe you were placed in situations where you had no choice but to develop patience, not the kind you talk about, but the kind you live through. Hidden training isn't always quiet either. Sometimes it's intense. Like a soldier in boot camp, God will let you face situations that push you to the edge, not to break you, but to burn away self-reliance until all that remains is trust in Him. And while others may have seen only struggle in your life, heaven saw skill being forged. Every unanswered question taught you endurance. Every lonely night deepened your prayer life. Every delay in the promise anchored you in faith. This is why, when the appointed time comes, you will not be caught off guard. You'll recognize the weight of your assignment because you've already carried weight in private. And that weight will not crush you, it will confirm you. Sometimes, the greatest danger is to be elevated before you are ready. Public platforms without private preparation become traps. But you, chosen one, I have been prepared where it mattered most, away from eyes that might have tried to measure you before your time. When David finally stood before the giant, the battlefield was simply an extension of the pasture. The skills he learned in obscurity, aiming with precision, trusting God for strength, were the same skills that brought the giant down. That's what your hidden training has been doing for you, transforming ordinary days into extraordinary preparation. You may not feel ready, but readiness isn't a feeling, it's a condition of the Spirit. And right now, you are more ready than you think. Soon, the training grounds will shift. The same God who led you into the hidden places will call you into open spaces, and when He does, you will carry the quiet authority of someone who has been tested and proven when no one was watching. And when the open spaces come, they won't intimidate you. They'll feel familiar. Because in truth, you've already stood there in the Spirit. Every unseen battle, every whispered prayer, every lonely victory was a rehearsal for the stage ahead. The public will see your strength. Heaven will know it's the strength you forged in the shadows. You may not have noticed it yet, but you carry something on your life that cannot be bought, traded, or imitated. It is the seal of heaven, an invisible mark that sets you apart. Some can sense it before you speak. Others can't explain why they're drawn to you, or, conversely, why they feel threatened by you. But in the unseen, it is clear, you are marked. This seal is not a badge of superiority. It is a mark of assignment. In ancient times, kings would seal letters with wax imprinted by their signet ring. That seal was a guarantee of authenticity and authority. It could not be forged without severe consequences. In the same way, God has placed His seal upon your life to mark you as His own and authorize you for His purposes. You've felt it in moments when you didn't quite fit in, when certain places or people could not hold you. no matter how hard you tried to blend. That was the seal, speaking louder than your surroundings. And there have been times you wondered if it was a curse, if being different meant you were destined to always walk alone. But what you have is not a curse. It is proof that you've been chosen for something that can't be reduced to ordinary. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 13, "When you believed, you were marked in him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit." And that seal is more than a spiritual label. It is an active, living presence. It's why doors close when you try to walk down the wrong path. It's why you can't find peace in environments that compromise your spirit. It's why your victories often come in ways you could never orchestrate yourself. I remember a man who once told me he felt like an outsider his whole life. He was passed over for promotions, misunderstood in his own family, and often accused of being too intense about his faith. But one night, in prayer, God showed him a vision of a scroll in heaven with his name engraved, not written, engraved into it. That was the night he realized the seal on his life was not about rejection, it was about protection. Every no he'd experienced was shielding him from a future that wasn't aligned with his calling. If you think about it, the seal of heaven operates like the signature of an artist on a priceless painting. That signature confirms the work's origin and value. No one can replace it, and no counterfeit can diminish it. You, chosen one, bear the Master's signature. And here's what's remarkable. The seal doesn't just mark you for protection, it also attracts provision. People you haven't met yet will be moved to help you. Opportunities will find you in unexpected ways, not because you manipulated your way into them, but because heaven has already authorized your access. This is why it's so important to carry yourself with the awareness of who you are. The seal means your life is not random. It means every season, even the painful ones, has purpose. And it means there is a responsibility to steward what you've been given with integrity, humility, and courage. Right now, if you know in your spirit that this seal is on your life, then walk with that awareness. Stop apologizing for the way God made you. Stop trying to shrink so others will feel comfortable. And stop doubting your worth when heaven has already declared it. I want to speak to those who have been feeling weary lately. This is the moment to let your spirit rise again. Remember whose mark you carry. This journey is not about earning your place. It's about living in the truth of the place you already have. If this message speaks to you, tap like as a way of saying, I agree with heaven's seal over my life. 11. If it resonates even deeper, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their mark. Sometimes, a simple click on share is the spark that pulls someone else out of the dark. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next word. Heaven places on this channel, it might be the one that confirms the step you've been praying about. And if you feel led to give, know that every seed you release is going into ground already, blessed, ready to produce a harvest that will touch more than just your life. This seal on your life is permanent. No attack can erase it. No failure can cancel it. No human opinion can change it. You are marked, and heaven knows your name. So lift your head, walk forward, and live as one who has been chosen and sealed for such a time as this. There are moments when heaven doesn't just whisper, it declares. This is one of them. You have reached a prophetic intersection, a place where the steps you take will not only shape your future, but will also echo into the lives of those connected to you. And in this moment, there is a number being impressed upon my spirit for you. But before we speak of that number, you need to understand why this is happening now. In the realm of the spirit, there are appointed times, kairos moments, when God calls his people to make a visible, decisive stand. It's not about superstition or rituals, it's about alignment. And today, you are standing in such a moment. I think of a man I once knew, a quiet believer who worked as a carpenter in a small village. For years, his life looked uneventful, steady, unremarkable, predictable. But one day, he felt a nudge during prayer to set aside a particular day to thank God for promises not yet fulfilled. He didn't know it, but that day marked the end of a 7-year season of delay. 2 weeks later, the opportunity he had prayed about for years came knocking, not because he chased it, but because heaven had already prepared it. What changed? He acted in alignment with a divine instruction. At the exact moment, heaven was ready to release what was his promisement. That's what's happening for you right now. The word of God in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Empty. This isn't just encouragement, it's a command. The prophetic number you're about to declare is connected to courage, to stepping forward with confidence into the unknown, trusting that God's presence goes ahead of you. You may be asking, why a number? In Scripture, numbers often carried prophetic meaning. They were symbols, markers, reminders of covenant moments. Just as 12 stones were placed in the Jordan River as a witness for generations to come, your declaration now will stand as a witness that you chose faith over fear. Right now, I want you to take a visible step of agreement. Write the number 555 inch, the comments. This is not about numerology or superstition, it's about covenant. The number 5 in Scripture represents grace, and repeated 3 times, it speaks of an abundant, overflowing grace that will cover your next season. By typing it, you are saying to heaven and to your own soul, I step into the fullness of grace for what is ahead. Understand this. Typing, it is not the end. It's the beginning. When you mark your alignment with a prophetic act, you are giving heaven permission to move in ways you cannot orchestrate. You are planting a seed that says, I am ready, I am willing, and I am positioned for what comes next. I can almost hear someone saying, but what if nothing changes? It already has. The very moment you act in faith, you have shifted position in the spirit. The breakthrough may not appear instantly in the natural, but in heaven's records, the release is already written. This is what the enemy fears, that you will realize how much authority you actually have when you align your actions with God's timing. That's why he works so hard to keep you passive, silent, or doubtful in moments like this. But you're not that person anymore. The season of hesitation is over. The seal from the last word still rests upon you. And now the prophetic declaration will add movement to it. There will be a day, not far from now, when you look back and remember that you typed 555 inch a moment of faith, not knowing exactly what God would do next. And you will smile, because you'll see how that simple act was the hinge that swung a door wide open. So type it boldly. Let the heavens take note. And then lift your eyes, because grace upon grace is already on the move toward you. And when that grace arrives, it will not trickle. It will pour. It will come in ways you didn't calculate, from places you didn't expect, and through people you never thought would be part of your story. You will realize that the act of faith was never about the number alone. It was about unlocking a flow that had been waiting for your agreement. Hold this moment close. When doubt comes knocking, remember, you marked this day. Heaven recorded it. And the gates before you began to swing wide. Grace is not coming slowly. It's running to meet you now. There are weights you have carried that no one else knew about. You learned to smile in public while storms raged in private. You've walked into rooms holding your composure like a shield, even when your heart felt heavy enough to sink you. This was not because you were pretending. It was because you understood that some battles are fought in silence. The burdens you bore were not always dramatic in the eyes of others, but they were significant in the eyes of heaven. Every sleepless night, every silent prayer, every moment you chose not to retaliate or speak in anger became a record in God's book. These moments were not wasted. They were offerings. I recall a young mother I once spoke with, who carried the weight of raising her children alone after her husband left. She worked 2 jobs, often skipping meals so her kids could eat. People around her saw strength, but few saw the exhaustion that came with it. She told me there were nights when she would sit in the dark after the children slept, tears streaming down her face, whispering only one sentence, "Lord, I can't do this without you." And what she didn't know was that those whispers were as loud as shouts in heaven. Angels moved at her quiet surrender. Doors began to open for her, not all at once, but steadily, like the first light of dawn. Today, her children are grown, thriving, and carrying the faith they watched their mother live in the unseen. The writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8, say, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." Lem. This means that none of your pain has been overlooked. The unseen sacrifices, the emotional weights, and the quiet endurance have all been noticed and valued. Carrying weight in silence can feel isolating. Sometimes it even makes you question your own worth, as though the invisibility of your struggle means it doesn't matter. But in truth, God often hides these seasons so He can protect the purity of what He's building in you. If everyone saw your sacrifice, the temptation for human approval could dilute the strength of your obedience. You have also been learning something in these seasons, the discipline of letting go. There were people you wanted to explain yourself to, moments you wanted to defend yourself, situations you wanted to fix, but you learned to step back. That restraint was not weakness, it was training in spiritual authority. Consider the image of a bridge carrying traffic day after day. It holds thousands of tons of weight, yet it never complains. Over time, the structure becomes stronger, more trusted, more relied upon. You have been that bridge, bearing the weight God allowed, knowing that one day it would lead others safely across their own trials. Your silence was not the absence of power, it was the channeling of it. By not speaking when you could have, you preserved your energy for the battles that truly mattered. By enduring weight you didn't deserve, you demonstrated a strength most never see in themselves. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all is this: the weight you carried was not yours to keep. Even now, God is lifting it from your shoulders. You may not notice the shift immediately, but soon you will realize you are breathing easier, sleeping deeper, and moving with a lightness you haven't felt in years. When that moment comes, don't rush past it. Acknowledge it. Thank God for the endurance He built in you and for the relief He has given you. Let the release become part of your testimony, so others will know that the God who sustained you in the silent wait is the same God who sets you free. There will be those who meet you in the future and have no idea of the burdens you've carried. They will see the smile, the strength, and the composure, but they won't know the cost. That's okay. The story isn't for everyone. It's for those God will send to you. The ones who need to know they, too, can survive seasons of invisible weight. And when you share your story, they won't just hear words, they will feel the authority of someone who has lived it. That authority is your gift, your inheritance from the season you thought might break you. The weights you carried in silence have not been in vain. They have been transformed into strength, compassion, and wisdom. And now, as those weights are lifted, you will find yourself walking taller, not because you are trying harder, but because the one who called you has lightened your load. There are times when rescue comes so quietly, you don't even recognize it as rescue until much later. You were on the edge, without knowing it, one decision away from losing something precious. One step from a path that would have taken years to recover from. And then, without warning, mercy stepped in. Mercy doesn't always arrive like a dramatic intervention. Sometimes it's the phone call that interrupts your plans at just the right moment. Sometimes it's the uneasy feeling that keeps you from making a commitment you later realize would have bound you. Sometimes it's a closed door that, at the time, felt like reaction, but later proved to be your protection. I remember speaking with a man who once applied for a job that seemed perfect. More pay, better benefits, a prestigious title. He prayed, felt at peace, and submitted his application. Weeks passed, and there was no response. He felt overlooked and even questioned if God had forgotten him. 6 months later, that very company made national news for corruption and mass layoffs. Looking back, he realized that the silence he hated was actually the voice of mercy. The writings in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 22 to 23, remind us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And mercy is not random, it is renewed. It is woven into your days. Even when you don't notice, you may think you've simply been lucky to avoid certain disasters. But luck has nothing to do with it. The hand of God has been steering you away from destruction, often in ways you couldn't see at the time. It's humbling to realize how close you may have come to losing your way. There are friendships you wanted to pursue that would have drained your spirit. There are investments you almost made that would have stolen your peace. There are relationships you thought would complete you, but would have broken you. Each time, mercy intercepted. Mercy doesn't just save you from harm, it also saves you for purpose. Every time you were pulled back from the edge, it wasn't only about keeping you safe in that moment. It was about keeping you available for the assignment ahead. Think of a traveler walking toward a cliff in thick fog. They can't see the drop ahead, but someone who knows the terrain runs forward, places a barrier, and redirects their steps. The traveler may feel annoyed, even suspicious, of why their path was blocked until the fog clears and they see how close they were to disaster. That's what mercy has done for you. And here's something you need to know. Mercy doesn't just step in once. It has been stepping in over and over, in ways you've recognized and in ways you never will until eternity. In the moments you thought you were being delayed, you were being protected. In the seasons you thought you were being overlooked, you were being preserved. In the times you thought you had lost something valuable, you were actually being positioned for something better. There is also another side to mercy discipline. Sometimes God's mercy is disguised as a correction that keeps you from going too far in the wrong direction. It may sting in the moment, but it's designed to save you from a deeper wound later. One woman told me about a season when every plan she tried seemed to fail. She was frustrated, confused, even angry at God. But years later, she saw the pattern. Every closed door had kept her out of situations that would have taken her far from her calling. What she once resented, she now praised God for. That's how mercy works. It's often recognized best in hindsight. Mercy is not only an act, it is a presence. It walks with you into places you are meant to go and blocks you from places you are not. It speaks in the quiet nudge, the unanswered prayer, the sudden change of circumstances, and right now, it is still active in your life. You may be asking God for something with all your heart, but if it isn't aligned with what will bring life and peace, mercy will intervene. That's not punishment, it's love in its purest form. So as you move forward, don't just thank God for the blessings you can see. Thank Him for the dangers you never met, the losses that saved you, and the closed doors that kept you. These are the fingerprints of mercy, and they are all over your story. There comes a point in every journey when the decision can no longer remain private. You've carried your calling quietly, nurtured it in hidden places, and walked it out when few believed in you. But now, heaven is asking for a public yes. This isn't about impressing people or proving your worth. It's about crossing a line in the spirit. When you openly declare your choice, you anchor yourself to it. You tell your soul, your circumstances, and every watching spirit, both light and dark, that you are committed to the road God has set before you. I remember a young man who had been wrestling for years with whether to fully step into ministry. He was skilled, respected in his profession, and comfortable. Leaving it behind for the uncertainty of a calling felt risky. But there came a day when he couldn't ignore the pull any longer. At a small gathering, he stood and simply said, "I will follow." Those 3 words changed everything. Within months, doors opened that had been shut for years, and resources appeared from unexpected places. His public yes released a chain reaction in the spirit. The Apostle Paul's words in Romans chapter 1, verse 16 are clear. "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes." A public choice carries weight. It transforms a private conviction into a living testimony, and when you declare it, heaven records it not as a casual statement, but as a covenant. So I'm asking you now, not just to think about it, but to put it into words. Type, "I stand firm," in the comments. This is more than a phrase, it's a prophetic statement. When you write it, you are saying, no matter what comes, I will not step back from the assignment on my life. Emsen, you may feel the tremor of fear at the thought of saying it out loud, even in text. That's because the enemy understands the power of a clear declaration. Once spoken, it becomes part of your spiritual record. Once written, it stands as evidence you cannot easily walk away from. Declarations like this have a way of reshaping how you see yourself. They pull you into alignment, strengthen your resolve, and remind you that the one who called you is also the one who equips you. And here is what will happen after you declare it. Opportunities will arise to prove it, not to test your worthiness, but to demonstrate to yourself that your decision was not empty talk. You will meet moments that ask you to remember this day, these words, and the choice you made. Let them remind you that you are not walking into this alone. The God who heard your declaration is the same God who will walk beside you in every step to come, and every time you are tempted to retreat. Remember, you already said yes. You already drew the line, and heaven has already written it down. And when the days come that feel heavy, when the path ahead is foggy and your strength feels thin, you will have this moment to return to. You will remember not just the words you typed, but the conviction that fueled them. It will be like a torch in the dark, reminding you that you have already chosen your side. In spiritual battles, indecision is often the enemy's greatest weapon. If he can keep you wavering, he can keep you ineffective. But a clear stand, one you've anchored in both word and action, becomes a shield that deflects confusion. You won't need to keep questioning if you're called. You'll walk as someone who already knows. I've seen it before. A young woman once told me she wrote down her commitment in her journal after a church service. At the time, it felt symbolic, almost small. But a year later, when her faith was under fire, she opened that page and found her own handwriting staring back at her. I will not quit. It steadied her. It reminded her that the moment of decision was real, and she had no intention of going back. This is what your declaration does. It becomes a future anchor. And the beauty is, heaven doesn't just record the words. Heaven backs them. The moment you align with God in this way, His resources, His strength, and His favor are committed to sustaining you. So when the storms come, and they will, you will not be tossed around aimlessly. You will stand firm, because you have already decided, and all of heaven is standing with you. There is a reality in the spiritual realm that few talk about. Heaven keeps records, not the kind you can erase or rewrite at will, but eternal records, books that carry the story of your obedience, your sacrifices, and your faith. Every step you have taken toward God, every yes you've spoken in secret, every refusal to bow, to compromise, it's all there. In the natural, we often judge success by what is visible: promotions, recognition, applause. But heaven's measurement is different. There, the value lies in obedience, not outcome. You may feel like some of your greatest acts of faith went unnoticed, but they did not. The books of heaven have been updated with your story. The writings in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 16, say, "A scroll of remembrance was written in His presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored His name." This means your name is not just known in heaven, it is recorded, along with the proof of your devotion. I once spoke with a man who told me he felt invisible in his ministry. He served faithfully for years, never on stage, never in the spotlight. One night, during prayer, he sensed God say, "Every act you've done for me is written down." That realization changed him. His work no longer felt small, because he understood it was part of a much greater ledger than anything the world could offer. When heaven's records change in your favor, it's not just about recognition, it's about release, new assignments, fresh opportunities, and divine connections often come after a season of hidden obedience has been marked complete. This is the moment you are stepping into now. I want you to carry this awareness as you move forward. You are living in the reality of a spiritual promotion. It may not come with a title or a crowd's applause, but it comes with authority in the unseen realm. Doors that were locked will begin to open, and the weight you carry in the spirit will be felt by those around you. And because moments like this are sacred, I encourage you to treat them with the same reverence heaven does. If this word confirms something in your spirit, take a second to tap like. It's not just a gesture, it's a way of saying, I agree with the record heaven is writing over my life. And share this with someone you know who might feel unseen right now. They need to hear that their faithfulness has been noticed. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next word from heaven. These are building one on top of another. And missing a step could mean missing a confirmation you've been praying for. And if your heart feels stirred, consider sowing a seed into this work. Every gift becomes part of the story of impact, touching lives you may never meet, but who will be eternally marked by your generosity. I think of it like a library in heaven, where each life is a book. Some chapters are filled with trials, others with victories, and some with pages so ordinary they seem forgettable. But in the hands of God, every line matters. And for you, a new chapter is being added right now, a chapter stamped with the seal of completion for one season and the opening words of the next. There will be people who look at you in the coming days and wonder what changed. They'll notice a new confidence, a steadier presence, and a light in your eyes they can't explain. That's the evidence of heaven's update. It changes you before it changes your circumstances. So, walk with the assurance that your story is in good hands. The author has not just been writing about you, he's been writing with you. And the next page is already waiting to be turned. And as that next page turns, you will realize something profound. God was never simply recording events. He was recording the transformation within you. The battles you thought were detours became proof of your resilience. The nights you prayed without seeing results became testimonies of your perseverance. Every detail has been woven into a narrative that not only honors him, but also equips you for greater authority. When you step into rooms now, you will carry the weight of someone whose name is known in heaven's courts. And wherever you go, you will sense it, the quiet confirmation that the author is still writing. And the next sentence will be even more extraordinary than the last. There are moments when the unseen realm draws nearer than usual, when you can almost feel the brush of something holy moving past you. These are not coincidences. They are moments when heaven assigns its messengers to walk alongside you, not as a concept, but as an active, living reality. Angels have always been part of God's design for his people. They are not distant figures in old stories. They are present servants of the Most High, moving according to his word, sent to protect, guide, and carry out divine assignments. Most of the time, they work quietly, without announcing themselves. But there are seasons like the one you are stepping into when their activity around you increases. You may notice it in the sudden safety that comes when danger should have touched you but didn't. You may sense it in a clarity of thought that feels beyond your own wisdom. Sometimes it's the inexplicable peace that wraps around you at the exact moment fear tries to take hold. These are not accidents. These are signs of angelic presence. The Book of Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11, says, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." This is more than poetic imagery. It is a covenant promise. If God has commanded them concerning you, their mission is not optional. It is absolute. There is a story I often think about: a man driving late at night on an empty road, exhausted from work. Just as he was about to doze off, a loud, sharp noise jolted him awake. There was no other car, no animal in the road, nothing visible that could explain it. Moments later, he realized he had been drifting toward the edge, where a sharp drop would have been fatal. He still doesn't know what made the noise, but he knows something unseen saved his life. Your life is not without such moments. You may not have noticed everyone, but they've been there times when something shifted just enough to keep you from harm. These assignments are not random. Angels are dispatched for specific purposes: to protect you from danger, to deliver messages, to open doors, to war against spiritual opposition, and even to strengthen you in moments of weakness. Sometimes they come as pure spirit beings. Other times they may work through people or events without revealing their true identity. In this next stretch of your journey, their presence will not decrease, it will multiply. The assignments ahead of you require a level of covering and assistance you haven't needed before. That's not because you are weaker now, but because the terrain is more significant and the stakes are higher. Angels also serve as confirmation of God's word over your life. When you feel alone, their presence is a reminder that heaven has invested its own resources in your success. And when opposition rises, their presence is a sign that you are not an easy target. You are surrounded by those who excel in strength. It's worth noting that angelic help does not mean you will avoid every challenge. It means you will never face one alone. Their role is not to remove every obstacle, but to ensure you have what you need to overcome it. Sometimes that means redirecting you. Other times it means standing guard while you fight. Imagine walking into a new assignment with a team of elite guards flanking you on every side. That is what you are stepping into now. You may not see them with your natural eyes, but in the spirit, you are never without this escort. One day, you will look back and see just how many moments were shaped by their intervention. You will realize that what you thought was coincidence was actually precise, intentional strategy from the throne of God. And you will thank Him not just for the victories you saw, but for the countless ones you never even knew were happening around you. And perhaps the most humbling part is this: you were never aware of most of it. The near misses, the sudden changes of schedule, the quiet redirections were all part of a larger choreography designed for your preservation. Angels have walked before you to prepare the ground, beside you to steady your steps, and behind you to guard what God has entrusted to you. In eternity, when the full story is revealed, you will stand in awe at how closely you were guarded. Until then, walk with the quiet confidence that you are never unprotected, never abandoned, and never without heaven's most skilled watchman at your side. There is a moment in every divine journey when the old season fully closes It is not just a gradual fading, it is a decisive ending, marked in the spirit like the final page of a chapter. You have arrived at that moment now. What's behind you has already served its purpose. The lessons are learned. The trials have shaped you. And the doors that once led you forward no longer open because they're not meant to. It's not loss, it's transition. And heaven wants you to understand that the ending is not a setback, it's a signal. In Scripture, moments like this were often marked by prophetic acts. Joshua built a memorial after crossing the Jordan. Elijah placed his mantle on Elisha to signify a new calling. These acts didn't create the change, they acknowledged it. That's what you are about to do. The Apostle Paul writes in Philippians, chapter 3, verse 13, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. This is not about amnesia, it's about intentional focus. The past is no longer your compass, your eyes are fixed forward. I once met a woman who had spent years waiting for reconciliation in a relationship that was never going to be restored. It consumed her prayers and her hope. Then, one morning in prayer, she felt God whisper, "It is finished." The words weren't harsh, they were freeing. That day, she packed away the letters, deleted the unanswered messages, and began walking in the lightness of someone released. Within months, her life opened in directions she couldn't have imagined before. This is where you are standing. The finality of the old season is not meant to grieve you, but to release you. The Spirit is inviting you to mark this moment, not just in your thoughts, but in a way heaven can witness. Write the number 888 in the comments. In biblical symbolism, 8 represents new beginnings. And here it is, tripled, speaking of complete renewal, an overflow of fresh starts, and the divine multiplication of opportunity. By declaring it, you are agreeing with heaven that you are not just stepping into something new, you are stepping into it in abundance. When you type it, let it be a statement to your own soul. I am done carrying the old into the new. I release the past, and I embrace the future with open hands. That act may seem small, but in the spiritual realm, it is the equivalent of slamming shut the door of a house you no longer live in. And as you do, prepare yourself, because new beginnings are rarely quiet. Opportunities will come suddenly, relationships will form quickly, and clarity will arrive where confusion once clouded your path. You will sense the shift not just around you, but within you, as if a weight you didn't realize you were carrying has finally fallen away. This is the day your story turns a page. Mark it well, and as you step into this fresh chapter, do not be surprised if the unfamiliar feels both exciting and unsettling. New beginnings often arrive dressed in change, and change can feel like loss until you see what it's making room for. Trust that every shift is strategic, designed to align you with people, places, and assignments that match the person you've become, not the person you were. Think of a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. To the casual observer, it may look bare, even lifeless, but in reality, the shedding is preparation for new growth. The tree cannot carry the weight of the old leaves into spring, and neither can you carry the weight of your past into what's next. The release is part of the renewal. Marking this moment with the declaration of 888 is not about forcing change, it's about recognizing it. Heaven responds to faith that is both believed and expressed. Just as Israel crossed the Jordan and set stones as a witness for generations, your act today becomes a witness for your own future. Months from now, you may look back on this very day and see it differently. You'll recognize it as the hinge where the door turned, the pivot where your direction shifted. You'll remember that you chose to step forward without dragging yesterday with you. And you'll see the fruit: new relationships, restored joy, opportunities you didn't even have the faith to ask for before. So breathe in the new air of this chapter. Let your heart rest in the truth that what is ahead is not only new, it's multiplied. Heaven is not just handing you a beginning, it is pouring out threefold grace to ensure you flourish in it. When the ground begins to shake beneath your feet, it can feel like everything is falling apart. But sometimes, the shaking is not meant to destroy, it is meant to remove what cannot remain. You are in such a moment now. God is shaking the old foundations in your life. Not because you have done something wrong, but because you have outgrown structures that once held you. Some of these foundations were built by your own choices, others were given to you by family, culture, or circumstance. They served a purpose for a time, but they cannot support the weight of what God is building in you now. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 27 says, "The removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things so that what cannot be shaken may remain. This is not random chaos. It is precise, divine construction work. God shakes so that what is eternal will stand and what is temporary will fall away. The shaking can come in many forms. Relationships that once felt solid suddenly reveal fractures. Career paths that once seemed secure take unexpected turns. Even your own understanding of yourself may shift. This is not instability, it is transformation. I remember speaking with a man who had spent years in a company he thought he'd retire from. Then, within months, the leadership changed. Policies shifted, and his position was eliminated. At first, it felt like loss, but with time, he saw that the company's values no longer aligned with his own. The shaking had freed him from a structure that was quietly eroding his integrity. Shaking reveals truths you might have ignored. It exposes what's been hidden, both in others and in yourself. It forces you to confront where you've placed your trust. When the familiar begins to crumble, you are invited to place your full weight on the one who cannot be moved. And here is the good news: the shaking is never endless. It continues only until the unnecessary is gone and the unshakable is revealed. In the process, your vision becomes clearer, your priorities sharper, and your spirit lighter. Think of a goldsmith refining metal. The heat causes impurities to rise to the surface, where they can be removed. The metal is not weakened by this process. It becomes purer, stronger, more valuable. That is what this shaking is doing in your life. It's also preparing the ground for something new. Old foundations are often tied to old ceilings. If they remain, they limit how high you can go. By allowing the removal of what's unstable, God is making room for a foundation that can carry far greater weight. But there is another layer to this moment. Shaking also loosens what the enemy tried to bury in your life. Hidden gifts, silenced callings, dreams you set aside because there was no room for them. These things will begin to resurface. As the old structures fall away, you will see space where there was none before. This process can be disorienting, and that is why trust is essential. Trust that the God who began this work will complete it. Trust that He is not tearing down for the sake of tearing down. but to build something better. Soon, the dust will settle. You will stand in a place that feels both unfamiliar and exactly right. The fear you may feel now will give way to gratitude, and you will thank God not just for what He built, but for what He removed. When the shaking is over, what remains will be stronger than what you had before, because it will be anchored in Him, not in circumstances, people, or systems that can change. And as you step onto that new ground, you will notice something else: the absence of strain. Where once you had to hold things together with your own strength, now there will be a stability that doesn't depend on you. You will feel it in your spirit first, like a quiet certainty that you are exactly where you're meant to be. You may even realize that some of the things you mourned losing were never truly yours to keep. They were seasonal supports, scaffolding for a stage of construction that is now complete. The removal was not rejection, it was graduation. Over time, your gratitude will outweigh your grief. The memory of the shaking will become a testimony, a reminder that you survived the dismantling and now stand on something enduring. And whenever the ground trembles again in the future, you'll remember this season not with fear, but with the confidence of someone who knows that shaking is simply the prelude to a stronger foundation. There is a gathering happening in the spirit right now, not in a physical building, but across time, distance, and circumstance. God is drawing together those He has set apart, the ones who carry His fire in their bones. This is the remnant. The remnant is not defined by numbers. It is not the largest group or the loudest voice. It is the faithful core, those who have refused to bow when others have compromised, those who have stayed awake while others have slept. They are scattered in many places, often unaware of each other, but heaven knows them by name. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 21 speaks of them. A remnant will return. A remnant of Jacob will return to the mighty God. This return is not only about location, it is about alignment. It is about hearts turning fully back to Him, regardless of cost. You are being positioned among them. That's why your recent seasons have felt like both stripping and sharpening. The remnant is not built on convenience, it is built on conviction. And conviction is costly. I once met a woman who had been part of several churches over her lifetime. She had seen growth, revival, and also compromise. When certain teachings began to drift from the truth, she could not remain silent. Speaking out cost her friendships and opportunities, but she chose truth over comfort. Years later, she found herself surrounded by others with the same unwavering commitment. That group became a source of strength, vision, and bold action. They were small in number, but mighty in impact. The gathering of the remnant is like assembling a team for a mission. Each person is chosen for a reason. Each carries something the others need. Some bring intercession. Others bring boldness. Others bring wisdom from scars earned in past battles. Alone, they may feel limited. Together, they are unstoppable. This gathering does not happen by accident. It is orchestrated through divine appointments, random encounters, conversations that seem insignificant at first, connections formed in the unlikeliest places. You may even find that God removes certain relationships to make room for these new alignments. Being part of the remnant also means carrying a shared urgency. There is an awareness that time is short, that the work ahead is significant, and that half-heartedness will not suffice. This is not a call to panic. but a call to readiness. The remnant moves with a unity that doesn't require uniformity, personal styles, backgrounds, and even perspectives may vary. But the central focus is the same: advancing the kingdom and standing firm in truth. This unity is forged not by human agreement, but by the Spirit's work. There is also a weight to being part of this group. The remnant is often sent into the front lines, into places where compromise has taken root, into cultures resistant to truth, into situations where boldness is costly, yet they go, not because they seek recognition, but because they cannot do otherwise. You may already sense the beginnings of this alignment in your own life. New voices are crossing your path. Old connections are quietly fading. Doors are opening to serve in places that require the very lessons you've been learning in hidden seasons. As the gathering continues, expect your vision to expand. You will see the bigger picture of what God is doing, not just in your life, but across the lives of others who carry the same fire, and together, you will move with precision, like parts of a body that know exactly how to work together. When the remnant stands as one, their impact is far greater than their size. History shows it. God has always worked through small, committed groups to bring about massive change. And now, you are stepping into that same stream of history. Though the world may overlook them, heaven measures their worth differently. The remnant's strength is not in visibility, but in faithfulness. They are like torches in the night, small points of light that, when gathered, can set the horizon ablaze. You may not yet know the full reason you are being drawn into this circle, but as the days unfold, it will become clear. The skills, scars, and revelations you carry are not random, they are strategic. Someone in the remnant will need what you have, and you will need what they carry. And when the moment comes for the remnant to move in unity, you will find yourself right in step, not scrambling to catch up, but already prepared. Because long before the mission began, you were chosen, refined, and placed exactly where you were meant to be. There is a line in the Spirit that, once crossed, changes everything. You can't go back to the old version of you, not because you've lost something, but because you've gained something you can't unsee, unhear, or unknow. That is the line you are standing at now. This is the place where hesitation ends and wholehearted obedience begins. The tests, the shaping, the refining, all of it has been leading you here. You are not stepping into this next season as an observer. You are stepping in as a participant, ready to engage fully with the assignment God has given you. Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15. Declares, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. It is not a passive suggestion, it is a call to resolve today, not someday. I think of a young man I met years ago who had been sensing a calling to mentor at-risk youth. He prayed about it for months, but kept delaying, waiting for a perfect time that never came. One day, during a service, the speaker paused mid-message and said, "Some of you are standing in the doorway. You either step through now, or the season will pass." The young man knew those words were for him. That week, he signed up to volunteer, and within a year, what started as a small commitment had grown into a full-time ministry that impacted hundreds. That's the power of a decisive yes. It doesn't just change your life, it shifts the lives of those connected to you. Right now, Heaven is extending the same invitation to you. This is not about rushing ahead recklessly, it's about moving forward with intentionality. Knowing the one who called you has already gone ahead to prepare the way. And because this moment carries weight, I want you to pause and mark it. If this word resonates, tap like right now, not as a formality, but as a personal agreement that you choose to step through the doorway before you. Share this message with someone who's been hesitating in their own calling. Sometimes, hearing another person say yes is all it takes to ignite courage in someone else. Leave a comment below about what this word is stirring in you. Your story might be the confirmation someone else has been praying for. And make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next word. These messages are not random, they are building, piece by piece, into a greater picture God is revealing. If your heart feels stirred to go even further, consider sowing a seed into this work. Every act of generosity multiplies the reach of the message, bringing light into places you may never physically go, but where your impact will still be felt. You are not just deciding for yourself, you are stepping into a ripple effect that will touch lives you may never meet. And one day, perhaps in eternity, you will see the faces of those whose stories changed because you crossed the line today. The truth is, this moment is bigger than fear, bigger than doubt, and bigger than the unknown. You are not walking into the next season alone. You are walking in with the full backing of heaven. And once you step forward, you will wonder why you ever waited. So take the step, mark the moment. Let your yes today echo into eternity. And when you take that step, you will find the ground beneath you steadier than you imagined. Fear will try to whisper that you've moved too soon or that you aren't ready, but you'll quickly see those lies dissolve in the light of God's provision. The very act of moving forward will unlock resources, connections, and opportunities that remained hidden while you stood still. You'll begin to notice divine timing at work doors opening just as you arrive. People entering your life with exactly what you need. Solutions appearing before the problems fully form. This is the rhythm of obedience. It pulls you into sync with heaven's calendar. And perhaps the most beautiful part is how your yes will inspire others. Some who have been silently watching you will gain the courage to take their own steps of faith, without you even realizing it. Your obedience will become a living testimony, a lighthouse guiding others through their own storms of hesitation. So don't let this moment pass unmarked. Write it down. Remember it. And when challenges come, return to it in your mind. This is the day you stepped over the line, not reluctantly, but boldly into the future God prepared for you long before you were even aware it existed. There are moments in the life of every chosen one when the weight of responsibility shifts onto their shoulders, not as a burden, but as a mantle. This is the transfer of authority. When God entrusts you with the tools, wisdom, and spiritual weight needed for the assignment ahead, it is both a gift and a calling, and it changes how you walk from that day forward. A mantle is not merely symbolic. In biblical times, it represented a person's role, authority, and empowerment. When Elijah placed his mantle on Elisha, it wasn't just fabric, it was the passing of prophetic authority, a visible sign of an invisible commissioning. Your own mantle may not look like a cloak, but you will feel its presence. You will notice it in the way situations begin to respond to your words differently, in how people come to you for guidance, and in the spiritual authority you carry into rooms. This isn't arrogance, it's evidence of the calling you've stepped into. The book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 1, describes it clearly. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, for the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives. The anointing always comes with a purpose. It is never for self-display. There's a man I once knew who resisted stepping into leadership for years. He thought others were more qualified, better spoken, more experienced. But over time, people naturally began turning to him in moments of crisis. When his pastor suddenly stepped down, the congregation asked him to lead. The first weeks were overwhelming, but then he realized he wasn't walking in his own strength anymore. The mantle had shifted to him, and with it came a strength he hadn't known before. That's how the mantle works. You may feel the weight, but you'll also feel the enablement. God never places a mantle without also releasing the grace to carry it. And this grace is not passive, it will stretch you, sharpen you, and sometimes push you into places you thought were beyond you. Receiving the mantle also requires letting go of old mindsets. You can't lead from insecurity or speak from hesitation. The mantle demands that you step fully into who God says you are. Even when your feelings lag behind, it will confront your doubts and challenge your comfort zones, but it will also reveal strengths you never knew you had. You'll begin to notice a shift in your prayers. They'll become bolder, more strategic, less about survival and more about advancing the kingdom. You'll sense a deeper alignment between your thoughts and heaven's priorities. And in moments of decision, you'll feel a quiet clarity that overrides confusion. The mantle is also a trust. It's given not just for what you will do now, but for what you will pass on later. Part of carrying it well is preparing the next generation, teaching, mentoring, and making room for others to grow. A mantle carried selfishly loses its power. A mantle shared multiplies its impact. In this season, you may feel the weight of what's been entrusted to you. That's normal. It's a sign you understand the seriousness of your calling. But don't confuse weight with weariness. The two are different. The weight of a mantle strengthens you. Weariness drains you. If you find yourself tired, lean into the one who gave you the mantle. His strength will sustain you. And as you walk forward with this new authority, expect resistance. The enemy is not threatened by titles, but he is threatened by real spiritual authority. Your mantle makes you a target, but it also makes you untouchable in the sense that no weapon formed against you can prosper when you are walking in obedience to the one who sent you. You are stepping into this new phase, not as a learner only, but as a leader. The mantle is yours now. Wear it with humility. Walk in it with courage. And use it to fulfill the purpose for which it was given. And remember, this mantle is not temporary clothing to be worn for a season and set aside. It is woven into your identity now, becoming part of how heaven sees you and how the earth will experience you. Even in moments when you feel unqualified, the mantle remains not because of your perfection, but because of God's choice. In the days ahead, you will see confirmation after confirmation that you were right to step into this role. Each victory, each life touched, each breakthrough will remind you the mantle was not given lightly, and it will not be taken lightly. You have been entrusted. Now, walk as one entrusted. There is a moment when everything you have walked through, every test, every refining fire, every hidden season comes together into a single point of clarity. You realize you are no longer becoming, you are being. The preparation is over. You are standing in your purpose. This is the hour when crowns are placed, not as decoration, but as recognition. In the ancient world, crowns were given to victors after long contests, to warriors who endured the fight and emerged standing. Spiritually, the crown is both a symbol and a reality. It speaks of authority, honor, and completion of a phase. The Apostle Paul speaks of it in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8. There is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. This crown is not earned by perfection, but by perseverance. You have walked roads that would have caused many to quit. You have stood when it would have been easier to kneel, to fear, or compromise. You have believed when evidence said you should doubt. And now, heaven acknowledges it not with fanfare that fades, but with a placement of honor that will outlast every storm. There's a story of a woman who worked quietly in her community for decades, mentoring young people, feeding the hungry, and advocating for the overlooked. She never sought attention. But when her time came to pass the baton, those she had impacted gathered to honor her. The crown they placed on her head was symbolic, but what it represented was eternal, a life poured out in obedience and love. In this season, your crown is not merely for display, it is a tool. Crowns in the kingdom are not meant to be locked away, they are meant to be worn as you continue the work. Your crown signifies that you have reached a level of maturity and authority that can now be used to influence, protect, and lead others. It will also serve as a reminder in the days ahead. When new challenges arise, you will remember that you have already endured worse and still prevailed. The crown becomes a testimony to your own heart, a visible sign of God's faithfulness to bring you through. But this moment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. Crowns are given at the close of one race, but they are also worn into the next. They do not mark retirement, they mark readiness for greater impact. You may find that in this season, others begin to look to you differently. They will recognize something in you, an authority, a steadiness, a grace that compels them to seek your counsel. This is part of what the crown represents, not superiority, but responsibility. And as you wear it, you will understand something vital. The crown was never the goal. The goal has always been the King who placed it on your head. The crown is simply a reflection of his trust in you to carry his image well. This trust is sacred. It means you have been found faithful in the measure given to you. And now, a greater measure is being entrusted. The journey will continue, but you will walk it with a weight of glory you have not carried before. So stand tall. The crown is yours, not by accident, not by human favor, but by divine appointment. Let it remind you daily that you are seen, known, and honored by the one whose opinion outweighs them all. You have walked through every word of this journey, 17 sections of revelation, confirmation, and divine instruction. But what matters most is not that you heard these words. It's what you will do with them. Heaven has poured truth into you for a reason. Now, the steps are yours to take. Every chapter you've just experienced has been building toward this moment. the moment where you recognize that you are God's chosen one for this exact time in history. The trials, the hidden seasons, the victories, they were never random. They were shaping you into someone who can carry light into the darkest places. If this series has spoken to you, tap like. Right now, let it be your quiet amen to heaven's work in your life. Share this entire journey with someone who needs it. You may not know who's standing on the edge of giving up, but your share could be the lifeline that pulls them back. Leave a comment below with one sentence about the part that hit your heart the deepest. Your words might be the very confirmation someone else has been waiting for. Make sure you hit subscribe so you stay connected to future messages. These aren't random uploads. They are timed for when you'll need them most. And if your heart is stirred to give, consider sowing a seed into this work. Every gift, no matter the size, extends the reach of these messages so that more people, in more nations, can receive the encouragement and direction you've just experienced. The final truth I leave you with is this: you are not at the end, you are at the beginning of a greater chapter. Go forward, wearing your crown, walking in your authority, and knowing heaven is with you every step of the way.